All right, guys, welcome back to the next episode of the Grand Prairie PD podcast. I am here with Luis and back with my co-host, KD.
Yes, sir.
Had to take a little break so he could do some police work for a while, but now we're back.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Well, Luis is one of the guys that we don't know whatsoever, so we're looking forward to getting to know him a little bit.
Yeah.
How long you been here?
This month marks 4 years with the department.
Holy crap.
You are a veteran.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm actually sixth on seniority on Knights A. Yeah, it's kind of scary,
I
right?
can't believe we didn't, because we never officially met, have we?
Not officially. I mean, we kind of seen
Like
each other on the
passing.
mat and
Yeah.
Right.
halls, but
Yeah.
yeah,
In
not
jiu-jitsu? In jiu-jitsu?
yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Huh. Normally I remember when people beat the crap out of me.
Y'all have wrestled each other's sweaty bodies, and y'all don't know. You don't remember.
Man, when you get your ass kicked as much as I do, it's just a blur.
You're so tired. You're just like,
Yeah.
oh man, just waiting for it to be over.
And then you try to crawl away, and someone just grabs you by the collar, like, nah, get back over here. It's like, okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Lewis. Well, let's do this. Tell me, how'd you get started?
So let's see. I got here because I was at Sam Houston State
Yeah.
University, and they did some recruiting there.
Yeah.
And so they had like a career day, and there's a whole bunch of departments there. And there was a few departments I was looking at, but I can't remember. I think it was Slater was there recruiting, and he gave us the pamphlet, the whole ordeal. Hey, here's the test date. Here's the requirements. And next thing I know, I'm putting my application for Grand Prairie. I put it in for Plano and DPS, but Grand Prairie called first. So
Quick draw. Gotcha.
I was going to ask what made us better than the other ones, but I guess just a little bit of blind luck.
well.
Worked out.
Yeah, so when I actually was in college, I was just a resident. I wasn't a citizen yet. And so I was actually born in Mexico. And then I came here. My family brought me over when I was 3.
Okay.
And so we moved to Wallace, Texas. It's like this super small town, and it's like an hour and a half southwest of Houston. Yeah, you're not going to know where it's at.
Yeah, Wallace,
Yeah.
Texas. Dang, that's smaller than Lufkin.
It sounds small.
It's like
That big.
Yeah, it's like 1,200 people.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And we're actually like decreasing in population. It's like
Honey,
reverse.
let's
It's a
go.
dying city.
Yeah. Yeah, which is funny because we're not that far outside of Katy. And
Okay.
then like the surrounding cities around Katy are like booming.
Right.
And then like it's our city. It's like, yeah, no, we're going down.
I wonder what's wrong with it.
I don't know. Probably a couple things.
we won't talk about
Sounds
it
like
on
he has
air.
the answer, and we're
Yeah.
just not going to worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So, yeah, I went to high school there. Small town. My graduating class was 60 people.
Yeah.
So, it was real small. I liked it. I mean, I think if I would go back, I'd do the small school over the big,
Yeah.
5A, 6A kind of class. But yeah, coming out of high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But I was like, yeah, criminal justice sounds easy.
Yeah.
So
I have heard it's an easy degree. It's
it is.
not the easiest job, but
Yeah, no, it's a pretty easy degree because it's more like on the theory side, especially when I got to Sam Houston.
Yeah.
It's more it's like what is crime and what causes crime kind of stuff, right? And like theories about crime and how to prevent it and all those things. And so you get out of it, you're like, oh yeah, that was really fun and interesting, but as far as law enforcement, you're like, yeah, I don't really know if it applies to law enforcement more as as being like a professor or research. I
right.
think it applied more to the research side of it. So
did
yeah,
you, did you think going in to this profession? Did you think like, hey, my degree is going to really translate and help me, or was there like a moment where you're like, oh, that 4 years is not?
yeah,
preparing
no, I
me
think
for
it
this?
was immediately like being an FT. I was like, yeah, my degree wasn't really what I thought it was. And actually, looking back, I would actually major in like English,
Right.
Something like that. Because halfway through my criminal justice degree, I was like, yeah, I don't really know about this, and so I actually picked up an accounting minor and a business minor.
Okay.
So I did the major in criminal justice and then the two minors in business and accounting.
Right.
So
Well, I'm trying to go the other way. Hey, what's kinesiology?
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I always tell people if they're on the outset where they haven't started college yet, get something that's a good alternative, because this is a job that it looks really appealing to a lot of people, and sometimes they just get in and it doesn't work out. They're not made for it, or sometimes it's just not what people expect.
Yeah.
All right, so let me ask you this, and be honest, were you that guy that, I've always wanted to be a police officer since I was 5?
I don't think so. I think that just somewhere along the way, I was kind of like, okay, that's kind of like the next step up. So when I was in Sam Houston, there's a whole bunch of prisons around the Huntsville area. Yeah. So I was actually a CO there. So I worked for TDCJ.
So
there.
A correctional officer.
You're right. Yeah, Texas Department of Criminal Justice. I worked there for about almost 4 years. I was at 2 different prisons.
Oh, wow.
And so you only have to be a resident to work in that system, because I wasn't a citizen. Okay. And I wasn't a citizen till I would probably say a week before the deadline cut off for our application here in Grand Prairie.
Yeah. So how does that work? How does citizenship, I don't want to sidetrack you, but like how does the citizenship process work as far as saying, hey, I'm a resident
versus
and saying, I guess what things does that being a resident only preclude you from doing that you were like, no, I need to get my citizenship to advance?
Yeah. So like I said, I was born in Mexico, and I was there till about like 3.5, and then so my mom died when I was in Mexico, and my dad was in the U.S. and he was here working, and so he brought us over. We came here legally, and so he tried for about like 20 years to get his citizenship through his workplace. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it was like a long process, like a lot of lawyer fees, all those things. So eventually, when I was like in, I think middle school, I think my last year in middle school, we finally got a residency.
Okay.
And so we became residents. Mm-hmm. So at that time, you have to be a resident for 10 years first before you can apply to be a citizen.
Oh, okay.
And then once you apply to be a citizen, it goes through like a review board. There's a whole application process through that. And then, you kind of get the seal of approval. Hey, there's a ceremony. You're now like an official citizen. Pretty much, if you've made it 10 years of being a resident, you'll pretty much get that citizenship. You just kind of have to stay. Like there's certain requirements. You can't commit like felonies.
That's what I was about to ask.
Right? And so because you can still get deported as a resident.
Okay.
There's just different immunities you get as a resident versus being an illegal immigrant.
Gotcha. Okay. Mm-hmm. I was I forget who I was listening to talking about the citizenship test and about the requirements to become a citizen as a foreigner makes you 10 times the citizen that your average everyday American wake up.
Yeah, for sure.
You see it on TikTok. You just start asking general questions and people just...
Oh, it's crazy. How hard was the test?
The test is not hard, I would say, because it's like basic history. Yeah. It's like basic history questions. It'll be like, how many amendments are there? Or it'll be like, what's...
And I fail.
Let me leave.
Yeah. It'll be like, it's like the executive branch does, and it'll be like blank.
Right.
Okay. So it's like some basic history, which, to me, because I grew up primarily speaking English anyways. Mm-hmm. My household was Spanish speaking, but I went to elementary, middle school, and high school learning English. Yeah. So like for me, it's like, the test is easy, but you get somebody who doesn't know any English, right? Didn't go to school here, doesn't know the process. You ask them like, hey, who's the president? And they're going to be like, they're going to struggle with it because there's a written portion, an oral, and then they ask you questions.
Oh, okay.
Right. So like for somebody that doesn't know the language, it's going to be a little difficult for them.
Okay, wait a minute. So you said written, and then like an oral board.
So no, so it's and it's been a little bit, but they ask you questions as far as like how many branches are there in government, right? And then you tell them the answer, and then there'll be like a screen. You have to read out what the sentence says, and then they'll also ask you to like write part of it down.
Okay, but where I'm getting at, if there are tens of thousands of people that need this process, no wonder it takes 3, 5, 10 years. Like that's stupid.
And it changes with like each administration. Yeah. There's and of course like I'm not super like spun up on how exactly, because my dad did it through his workplace.
Yeah.
And basically, like, his workplace was a sponsor for him.
Yeah.
Because, you can do it through, like, marriage and stuff
Yeah.
like that. There's also, like, family violence. You can, there's, like, we have victims of family violence, right? We get the family violence card, stuff out like that. But he did it through his workplace. And it took a while, because it took from the time that we got here till about, like, when I was in high school. And then he started the process before I was even here. So it takes a long time.
Yeah, it does. I don't have that kind of patience. I'll be in line talking about, hey, can we do a group test? Because I don't want to stand in line for another, 5 years. That's crazy. Man, do something with that system. Make it faster.
Yeah, so kind of back to the question. So when I was in college, I didn't have no money. Well, I didn't have money to even pay for college. So coming out of high school, I applied for a whole bunch of scholarships. I was just like, I got a computer when I was a senior, and I was just like, how to get scholarships.
Yeah.
I was like, scholarships for Hispanic people. I was like, scholarships for, blank.
Yeah.
And so I ran up on the Smith-Hudson scholarship, and it's at Sam Houston, and that was primarily like a financial need scholarship, along with your academics. I was top 10 in my class, but again, my class was 60 people, so you only have to be in the top 6.
Just don't put that part down.
Yeah. So, it wasn't like super hard, but yeah, it was primarily financial need. Because coming out of high school, I was like, man, I don't know what I want to do. Like, I can't pay for college out of pocket. My family doesn't have money to do that. Yeah. So my 2 options coming out of high school is either, I'm either going to go to the military or I'm going to go, to the workforce. Kind of college, it was kind of like a wishful thinking kind of thing. But I was like, yeah, I can't pay for that. But yeah, anyway, so I applied for this scholarship, Smith-Hudson scholarship, and I got it. And I was like, I was just like appalled because it was a full ride 4-year academic scholarship. And so
that's what's up.
And so coming out of college, I graduated debt free. So that was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Let me hold $100.
Everybody here knows how much money you make.
Yeah. Jeez, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it was super awesome.
So debt free. I'm gonna be hung up on that, just so you know, for a little while, because most of the time it's like, no, what is it? Financial aid. Then you graduate, and then you have to pay that back for years.
Yeah.
Years.
Years.
More years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool too because it great example of it's not always where you come from; it's where you're going.
Yeah.
And the hard work and like you said, a lot of people will look at college and say, I don't have the money for that. It's out of reach for me. And you were like, no, I'm going to use the resources I have and figure out how to get there. So it's awesome.
Yeah. Which it's funny though, because I worked out where I worked as job-wise all throughout like middle school and high school. And I actually picked up my brother-in-law does construction. He has his own construction company now. But at the time, he was just a foreman for like a basic company. And so it's funny. I put this on my history statement. I got a fake ID, to work.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Not to like, buy beer or anything like that. Because when I put it on my history statement, it's like, okay, so you buy beer? I was like, no, I got it so I can go work because I wasn't of age to work in construction because you had to be 18 and I was 16 at the time.
Right.
So I go with him to work, and we actually went to Sam Houston to go work at the health center.
Okay.
And so I'm there at the health center, and I'm just working and I see all these college kids coming up and down, and I got like a shovel digging a hole. I'm like, man, this is rough work. I do not want to do this for the rest of my life, And I just kind of like at that point I was like, okay. I kind of made a decision that like, okay, I got to get it in gear. Yeah. I'm going to have to do something to kind of like better my life. Yeah. And, eventually ended up going there and then walking by that health center every day to class. I was like, hey, I used to work here.
Right.
Yeah. It's kind of a little weird.
Yeah.
What does your family think about it now that you're doing this job?
So initially, I think there was just a little bit of them being skeptical. I think that there's a big gap between policing and the Hispanic community, and a lot of it's just misinformation. A lot of it's just they just don't understand. They just don't know.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them they support police. They're just afraid of what's going to happen. And so that's what my family it was. It's just like, oh, you're going to go be a cop. It's like it's always like a negative outlook towards when police gets involved in your family.
Right.
But once I kind of like explained to them, like, hey, this is what I'm doing, and especially once I explained to them, like, hey, Grand Prairie is heavily Hispanic. I'm out there and I'm going to calls, and I look like the citizens I'm serving, and they're like, okay, yeah, that sounds really awesome. And then I'm a part of Unidos too. Here we have the Unidos program here at the department, and
We met there. Yeah. Okay. Never mind.
yeah. And so, once you start to tell them like, hey, this is what I'm doing to kind of to bridge that gap between policing and the Hispanic community, they really get on board.
Yeah.
So
What do you find is some of the biggest issues that kind of divide? Because I in my experience in patrol, especially where I worked was typically majority Hispanic. A lot of times, once you kind of told people like the way civilian law enforcement works here is that we don't really care about immigration status. We don't care about who you know. Like you can still pick up the phone and call us, and we're still going to show up. And the only thing I'm worried about is your well-being or resolving the situation or whatever it is. Once you kind of got that out of the way, it seemed to break down a lot of barriers. Do you think that's the primary issue, or are there others?
yeah, so that's the primary issue because we're just like even when I was like a illegal immigrant, I was just afraid to go back. I was just afraid to be deported. Right. And that's the biggest issue that if you're a victim of a crime, you're afraid that if you call the police that they're going to come in and ask you like, hey, even now I'll ask people just for makes it easier on me to find them in the system. I'll be like, hey, are you a citizen? And they'll kind of like give me a long pause.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, hey, I'm not here for that. I'm just trying to find you in the system. I'm just trying to see if you're in the system or not. But yeah, the biggest fear is just being deported. That's
Right.
kind of like why people don't trust the police because they think that we're going to immediately, put them in handcuffs and then drive them to jail and then boot them out the door kind
Right.
of thing.
Yeah.
Which is not an our job thing.
Look,
Yeah,
I was
just
gonna
at
say
all.
it's-
I would
Yeah.
tell people, even if I wanted to. Like,
Yeah.
if I just woke up one day, I was like, I'm gonna take an illegal immigrant and get him out of the country.
Yeah.
I don't get to do that. Like, it's not my job. I can't.
Yeah, it's way over our head. Well, let me ask you this, bro, because you just mentioned Unidos. How long you been doing that, or how long you been?
So I got approached by Molina about it maybe like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've been doing a few events. I think we just had like a back to school bash, August the 5th. A few of the guys went. I didn't go since I was on shift at the time. But yeah, it was just getting kids to backpacks and supplies, stuff like that.
What is Unidos?
What is Unidos? So it's just it's basically our Hispanic officers here in the department, and we have a few who aren't Hispanic, and then we put on events throughout the year, and we reach out to our Hispanic community to come to the events. They don't have to be like law enforcement related. They can just be for information purposes, and there's just events where we get together and we just let them ask the questions. Like, hey, what do you want to know? What's your questions about? It doesn't have to be, like we said, it doesn't have to be law enforcement related. You can just ask me whatever it is, and we'll try to answer those questions. You got the Sienna Cop shirt on. We also have Noche de Fiesta, which is pretty much the same thing, just the kind of like the Hispanic version of us doing like a big get together. Put it on Christmas gifts for the kiddos, give them away. So yeah,
That's
just do a little bit of community policing.
Yeah, like you said, and we'll touch on the point real quick. So, with I'm probably saying it wrong, but with Unidos,
I heard him say it. I knew I said it wrong.
Yeah, I know. So look, I'll stick with mine. Unidos. But what we do is we try to take that gap because we know that divide is there. Like you said, the Hispanic culture. Okay, I don't want to fool with the police. So man, and we stay out here in the community, so we're always reaching out. Like you said, sometimes I know we had a Q&A session because a lot of the question goes back to, hey, citizenship.
Right.
And when we come across police, what are y'all looking for versus what's being said and what's being done? So it's something that we just have to continue to do, and we will. That program is not going anywhere. But being in community services, I get to work with you guys, hand in hand. So it's pretty neat to see where we've come from with that.
Yeah, it'll just be like questions like, hey, where do I go pay my water bill? It'll just be like, it's just questions that you think, a normal person would know. It's just, there's just such a language barrier there that we did, just help them out with those kinds of things.
Yeah. Well, in this profession being what it is, it's traditionally in this part of the country anyway, majority Caucasian. So being able to target, especially when you have things like a language barrier, is really important to get past that. You know, I mean, I was on a traffic stop last week or week before, and pulled a guy over and was talking to him, and he didn't have a license. And I just told him, I was like, hey, you need to get a license. And he had a residence card, and he's like, I don't think I can. And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And he's like, do you think can I take this and go get one? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I would ask.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I see it. A lot of my coworkers, and it's everybody's discretion, right? On like if you're going to give somebody a no license ticket or not.
Sure.
It's up to you, right? The situation dictates the result.
Right.
But a lot of them's like, hey, go get a driver's license. I'm like at the end of the traffic stop or whatever we're on, like, hey, like, you know, they can't, right? Like, you know, they can't get a license.
Yeah.
They're like, what do you mean? It's like they just got to go to the DMV, and I was I'm like, no, it's like it's a little bit of a different process. But yeah, no, like they're illegal here. They don't have documentations, right? Like they don't have the DMV is going to ask for this, this, and this, and they don't have those things. They're like, oh, okay. And just, you know, somebody who's probably been doing the job for, you know, 5 years more than I have, they still don't know that.
Yeah, for sure.
You know? And so, yeah, just a little bit of insight.
I've been doing this job for going on 12 years now, and I've never been asked that before.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, and honestly, I should have Googled it because I still don't know.
Yeah.
No, we assume that, you know, police knows everything. So if you, Katie, can I go? Man, sir, Google it. You know, call them, see what they say. I don't know either.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right. So did I hear you right? Are you an FTO now?
No,
No,
not an FTO.
What, do you get in trouble a lot?
No, so I've been asked a few times, but I'm more of a fill-in when our FTOs are on vacation.
What's been your experience filling in?
It's been pretty good. I had one recruit, then I had one lateral.
Okay.
I think I had a really spun up recruit, so it wasn't very hard at all.
Yeah.
And then the lateral I had, I mean, it was just like riding 2-man.
Yeah.
It was both of them were pretty easy. So yeah, I didn't have any kind of negative experience with it. So.
What's your aversion to doing the FTO program?
What was that?
What's your aversion to doing the full-time FTO gig?
Why you don't want?
Oh, well, I don't know. I like being behind that driver's seat right now and just having full control of like, because there's days where I'm on shift and I don't even have the radio on. I'm just so focused on like going out there and just catching bad dudes that like it'll be like 2, 3 a.m.
The music radio, right?
Yeah.
I was like, you should have the other radio on in case someone needs you.
Yeah. The
call
music
my
radio.
cell phone. I don't want to be bothered today.
Oh, it's like super quiet. I wonder why I haven't got dispatched to
If
a
I
call.
turn this off, I don't get calls.
Yeah. No, but I'll be like super focused in, and I don't know. I just think that when I was in that passenger seat, I was just like, you know, trying to hold back a whole bunch of like, hey, let's go here, let's go here, let's go here, you know. And so, I don't know. Maybe, you know, in a few years or so, I'll be ready to kind of bring it back a little bit.
Yeah. Let the reins go.
Yeah.
I get that. That's a good reason.
Yeah, but that's a typical police. Like we always need to be in control.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I need to run things, and it's super hard. I couldn't do it. I couldn't sit over there. Nope.
It's sketchy.
Yep.
Sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm a nervous passenger anyway. But yeah, just from the driving perspective, sitting there is and then keeping my mouth shut while guys they talk and give the wrong answers, and I have to like wait till they leave and they give the right answers. Yeah.
He's a guy talking about, yeah, you can turn now. All right, yeah, go ahead and get over. Like, bro, I'm driving. I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will say, though, I see two reasons that often get offered for not wanting to do the FTO program. And typically, it's either I want to go work, like kind of what you're saying, or sometimes, especially older guys, will take the other route where it's, you know, they don't want to have to get into as much stuff as they're going to need to with a rookie because they need those arrests, they need that experience and whatnot. So
Yeah.
it's a pretty solid reason not to do it.
Yeah. So you said 4 years on. What else do you want to do while you're here?
So I put in for auto theft when the last opening was there. So I think right now that's kind of like the only thing I have in sight, auto theft. I'd be open to domestics as well, but I kind of have like auto theft kind of ahead of domestic crimes.
Right.
But yeah, I think those two spots are kind of like what I'm looking at.
Yeah. What's your favorite part about working patrol, being on the street?
I think it's being able to go out there and just, you know, shaking the bushes and being able to find, find your own work. That's kind of, of course we get on, we answer our calls, we take those reports. But then, once all that settles down, it's being able to go out there and just being able to find those people that are trying to hide from us, that are, out and about and committing crimes, and just being able to spot them out and pick them out and stop them and put them in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say he hit that nail on the head. When you come over here, we expect the officers to get into stuff and self-initiate activity. However, like everybody else, I think there is a time where we answer calls and it's going to be call load and call driven.
Oh, yeah. Especially night day.
Yeah, but when it slows down, you have to be able to turn that switch and go, okay, now that the calls have died down a little bit, let me go and shake those bushes and get into stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved about it. When we came over here, it was the same way, bro. Same way. So going to jail 2 and 3 times a night, it's a thing here.
Yeah.
Not so much in other cities, but I can tell you it's a thing here. So, just wanted to put that out there.
Well, in the book, I don't want to go down this road again.
I know.
The booking process. Man.
Yeah.
It blew my mind. So what we're talking about, you can literally book a person in on scene while you're out, and they're sitting in the back of your Tahoe.
On the computer.
Yeah, on the computer. So that when you pull up to the jail, Sally Port opens, you go in and you go, hey, he or she is in on this report number, here's the charge. They search them down, they go, okay, officer, you're free to go. And literally it takes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
Yeah, at that,
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because we've been stuck where it was 3-4 hours somewhere else. Yeah.
Or if you, you're busy there and you want them out of there, I can have you throw them in the car and take off, and by the time you get to jail, I've got it done. You just walk in, give me my cuffs back real quick, and take off.
Off. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Efficiency.
Yeah. What are there any processes that you think we can tweak to go a little faster, a little better? Like DWI, you hear all the officers, oh man, I want to do a DWI. You have to do this and do that. I
don't mind DWIs. I think, I don't know. I think I can knock one out in 3 hours. 2.5, 3 hours is my average.
Yeah.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah. I think mine's 8.
So, yeah. I mean,
what's your favorite thing to investigate if you had to just put one?
Let's see. No. I like the stolen cars, the UUMVs, kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
But also the the evadings, when they actually do get away from you, what little pieces you have to kind of put it together.
Yeah.
Hey, this car's been hitting here, 5 times for the past 2-3 weeks in that intersection, and then you kind of go set it there around that time, and you spot it.
Yeah.
It's
Son of a gun has a job. Look, he's coming through here the same time every day. Go get him.
Yeah. It's something's down here that he's coming for.
Yeah.
Or she.
Yeah. I tell you what, for me, it was doing the fingerprint the first time and actually finding a print and lifting it and turning it in.
I've never done that.
Oh,
yeah.
Bro.
I've been unsuccessful a few times.
I've lifted a few. I don't know if they came back to anything.
Yeah.
It could have been my own prints.
You broke in. So
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Now, with this being your first, a lot of guys come from the military or whatever else where they develop their own, coping mechanisms for stressful type work. But this being your first job like that, what are some of the things that you do to kind of take the edge off and slow down, I guess, on the personal side?
Yeah. So I think, this job is stressful. And then I kind of talked about it earlier, where I worked as a CO for Texas Department of Criminal Justice for a little bit. Since I was 18, I joined that. And, man, that job there is stressful.
Is it really?
It is super stressful.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just because I was younger, too, because I was 18, 19, and I stopped when I was 20, when I was just about to turn 21. Because I quit there on a Friday, and then I started here on a Monday.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. Babe, we're going to take the next 3 days off.
Yeah.
Jump right
And
in.
so, man, that job itself was pretty stressful. I think, not that TDC did a poor job, or but there was a lot of like mental health stress related to that job because you're surrounded with inmates all day, right? And so that can kind of get to you, especially the inmates who really don't have much to lose, right? They can get under your skin, and they just find ways where you just go home and you're like, oh man, this is rough. Right. And so I think I kind of learned to cope with kind of all that at that time was one, my wife. At the time she was my girlfriend, but now she's my wife. Being able to come home and just be like, hey, babe, this is the kind of day I had. And she's like, oh, okay. And she'll kind of talk it out with me. And then it's like, oh, yeah, I feel much better now. And then also just staying active with her. We work out a lot. And then so those two things kind of help me unload. And then once I got here, it was kind of the same thing, it was like, oh, babe, today FTO was stressful. I was like, I am thinking about like this and this and that, and my head's all over the place. And then being able to go home and she's like, okay, take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. Let's just unwind a little bit and then, then do whatever we need to do. So, yeah.
Were there any adjustments that were hard for you to make from going on the TDC side to policing on the outside?
I think if anything, it was that not everybody we deal with here on the street is a criminal, because you take your reports and you talk to a lot of victims, and sometimes victims are going through kind of like of a crisis, and they're very pleading for help, and
Right.
sometimes it's like you just want to tell them to calm down, like, hey, don't do this, don't do that, right? They're all over the place, and it's kind of like you kind of have to kind of cater to them a little bit, calm them down, talk to them a little differently. If that's kind of like a suspect's doing all those things, you're like, okay, you're going to be real authoritative with him,
right? Versus
the victim, you're going to be like, trying to use your other policing skills with them.
Yeah. I can see that.
Have you ever? I don't want to be funny, but like when you were a CO and you're working on the inside, like, do you ever go, bro? Okay, I understand. Yeah, you didn't do it. I got it.
Oh man, I don't know.
Everybody said they didn't do it. Bro.
Yeah,
okay.
There's just a running joke in there. It's like, yeah, I didn't do it, and it's like, okay, yeah, it's like, all right, I don't know. So, I don't know. I don't think there was ever an instance where I was like, yeah, I think they didn't do it, because there's just so much backstory to it.
Yeah. I want to hear a scary moment in there, because of course I only see like TV and movies.
Yeah.
But like you said, number one, I couldn't imagine like this is where you work, but you're surrounded by some of the the people that the other folks don't want to be around. Like, what are some like a scary moment, a situation, story?
Yeah. So it was because we do kind of like the same thing. There's an academy process, but it's real condensed. Like the academy process is like, I want to say like a month, maybe.
Oh wow.
And then you have your FTO process too, like on the job training. And that's like maybe a week.
Oh geez.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna throw you in here with the sharks.
Yeah, and then you get some OC, and then you get thrown into the wolves.
Yeah.
And you just kind of like have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Any job where OC is my only option, I'm out.
Yeah. And so when you're new, especially when you're new in a new unit, you're gonna get those hard wings. You're gonna get the wings that none of the senior officers want.
Yeah.
Right.
And so
which ones were those normal, like the more serious offenses, or just
so within the system? Like you get classified depending on your behavior. Of course, you get classified depending on your offense.
Yeah, you're charged.
But most of the times, once you made it to like we call them ID units, units where you're gonna. That's kind of like your residence now. Instead of you hopping over from like being a transient inmate, this is kind of like your inmate for a while now.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you get classified most of the times as a G2 inmate, which is kind of just your general population inmate. But then if your behavior declines, whether it's for a fight, assault, or whatever it is, you get G4 status. We had G3s, which were either 50 plus or life sentence or capital murder inmates that weren't on death row, because death row got housed at a different unit completely.
Okay.
But yeah, so most of the times G-force is kind of like what new COs would get thrown into. Right. And that was just like 18 years old, with all these dudes who not only have been in prison, but now are showing declining behavior in prison. It's like, it's a little intimidating when you kind of think about it. But to answer your question, I think I was maybe a month or two onto the job, and we had wings where we would watch inmates. And so we had 2 wings. Each wing had about 150 inmates. So you were responsible for 300 inmates at a time. Yeah, I see your face.
How many guys?
1. You.
I quit.
What?
My 2-week notice.
Yeah. And most of them were in their cells locked.
Right.
Right. And then we had a day room. And so they could, we had,
like a rec room?
Yeah. Kind of like a rec room, day room where they had benches, they had TVs. They could, sit around, watch TV, play dominoes, checkers, whatever it was. And like every hour, they get to either like switch from day room to their cells or opposite, but they couldn't just be running around.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was one of the rules of the prison that you can't have your shirt off when you're in the day room. And that's pretty much for like, hey, I'm repping this gang.
Yeah.
Right.
Gotcha. Like, and they love to do that, right? And so when you're new, they love to test you. They love to see what you're going to allow them to do, what you're not going to allow them to do, and you have to be stern, right? Yeah. So as a new officer, I'm like, I'm putting my foot down on everybody that tells me no, and they have to, and they have to respect my authority. That's what I thought.
Yeah. Right.
So I quickly got checked by an inmate. He was like, he wasn't much taller than me. He was like maybe 5'10", 5'11", but he was like 350 pounds of like muscle.
Yeah,
oh,
and he was full. And I was stopping everybody from going into the day room with their shirts off. And I'd call it out, hey, put your shirts on, put your shirts on. And they all keep, oh, man, whatever. They put it on. Well, this guy, I don't know if he had a bad day or whatnot. He's like, make me put my shirt on.
Okay. And
he approaches me. And I'm like, oh, God. Like, what do I do?
This is not in the script.
Yeah. So he approaches me. I get my pepper spray out like it's going to help me against this like 300-pound man.
You spray and run, maybe.
Yeah. And so luckily there was some guys behind him that were also inmates that kind of like grabbed him and were like, hey, man, chill, Yeah. And so I sent him back up to his cell. And then we told my supervisor, and then we go in there with the team and get him and then put him in segregation. So that was one of the times where I was like, I think that would have gone really bad if, if those inmates weren't there because,
you
assaults on staff happen quite a bit. So, well, not say quite a bit, but they do happen.
Yeah.
Is it like the movies where it's like every other day somebody's getting shanked or worse?
No, I wouldn't say. Well, it also depends on what unit you're at. So, like out here on the streets, I can, I see their prison tats.
Yeah.
And I'm asking them like, hey, what unit were you at? And then sometimes I'll catch them off guard because, typical officers won't know that.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I was at this unit. It's like, dude, like, nah, man, you weren't at a gladiator unit. Yeah. Like, they'll be like
playing golf. Stop.
Yeah. And so they'll be like, oh, I was at the Ferguson unit. Or, hey, I was at the Beto unit or Cofield unit. I was like, oh, okay. Like, this guy did some time then, like, And so, just kind of get to ask those questions and kind of get a feel for what kind of a person they are because you also don't get to those units, being the best inmate.
There you go.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
You walk up and I'm working. You ain't got your shirt on. I'm like, today is just the day for the no shirt. Everybody take your shirt off.
You know what? Obviously, you work on your body. You've earned it.
Yeah.
Show it off.
Yeah, you definitely walk down the hallway and you see like the day rooms because you could walk down the hallways, the day room to like your left and the day room to your right.
Oh, okay.
So, and there's different officers working each wing.
Yeah.
So you definitely see like one day rooms, like they're just having a party in there. Like it's like they're all shirts off. They're all like, they're all shadow boxing. They're all doing what they want. And then you go to the next room. They're all sitting down, watching TV, like, So it just reflects what kind of CO they are.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. Man, I don't know. I would have been scared every day. Every day.
I'm sure I feel like you get used to it at a certain point, though, right?
Yeah, you could just kind of, and at some point you just start building the rapport with them, with the inmates, right? Like, you're firm, but you're fair.
Right.
Right? Like, hey, these are the rules, and I'm just going to enforce them. I'm not going to make up rules just because I want to or because I can or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they get to know that. They get to know you as an officer. And quite honestly, like most of them, they just want that. They just want consistency.
Right.
Yeah.
They see you, they just want to know that, like, okay, this officer is going to do this.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, if you show up one day and you let everybody have a good time and you show up the next day, you want to put your foot down.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
yeah,
They
they're
don't
not
know
going
what to
to.
expect.
Yeah, they're not going to like that.
I'm sure it's not too terribly different from out here because if everyone in the world decided, screw the cops, we're not putting up with this, we're not following any rules, there's nothing
Yeah.
the 900,000 or however many cops are in this country can
Yeah.
do about it.
Yeah.
Nowhere close, not even us in our own communities. So I imagine it's kind of that same give and take where it's like, am I physically capable of fighting all 5 of you in this traffic stop right now?
Yeah.
No, but you recognize like the cost is not going to be worth it to you, and I recognize I'm going to show a little bit of respect, so I don't have to go down that path either.
Yeah. When I was in the prison and I'd get somebody new, I'd be like, hey, respect goes a long way here.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, these guys are in here for whatever crime they committed. I don't know. I don't really care. But as long as, you know, you show them respect and they show you back to you, hey, that's kind of all you need. And a lot of times in there, I'd be like, you know, all you have is your word. I can't give those inmates anything,
Yeah.
right? So if I tell an inmate I'm going to do something and then I do it, he's like, okay, yeah. That's a good officer,
Yeah.
right? And then if you tell him you're going to do something and then you don't, then he's going to come back tomorrow. He's going to give you a little look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not going to really respect you anymore.
So have you like bribes? What's the craziest thing? Or, like, did you see other inmates like give somebody something that you know?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of things in there. Towards my year and a half there at the prison, I went from Estelle to Win, and then I started doing gang intelligence, our security threat group officer. So basically, kind of dealing with our prison gangs, and so a part of that was also investigating maybe corrupt officers. And so, yeah, I mean, the drugs that we have on the streets, they're in the prison.
Right.
You know, and
That's
so
crazy.
most of the time they're probably getting in from a corrupt officer, you know, maybe
Really?
like a little bit through visitation, and then like that rare time where they throw the soccer ball over kind
Yeah.
of thing. But most of the times it's just your corrupt officers.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Man, did you ever get put in a situation where you had to like take enforcement action against other officers?
Yeah. So personally, we kind of assisted OIG, which is our Officer of Inspector General.
Okay.
And they're the police force within the TDC.
Yeah.
And so we would get tips just like we do here, like anonymous tips of like, hey, this inmate is talking about so and so, they're bringing in this, or they're having a relationship with this officer. And we get those anonymous tips. It happens. We caught it on video once.
Oh God.
Yeah. And so we get those tips. We do investigating, right? We listen to like, because each phone call that make is recorded.
Yeah.
Right.
And so one of the things that weren't allowed to do was three-way calls. So basically, like, I'm an inmate, I call you, and then you three-way somebody else,
Yeah.
right? And then,
you can't track who they're talking.
yeah, right. And so they have their code words of like Skittles would be for like drugs,
Yeah.
M&Ms would be this, or, you know, just whatever it was. And yeah, so we'd get tips about those things. We'd do a whole investigation process. Once we felt like we had enough to actually take it to the actual OIG or police force, be like, hey, there's actually something here. There's an actual offense that can be charged. They can be charged with in the free world, is what we called it. Then they would take over the investigation, and then once they had enough, they would either charge the inmate with the new offense, or most of the times they would charge the CO if they were bringing in items or having relationships. They would charge them with those offenses, and then take them and book them into county.
God, that's a bad spot to be in.
Yeah.
Talk about a role reversal.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was a good day when you got a corrupt officer,
Yeah.
walk them out of handcuffs throughout
Yeah.
the unit.
Yeah.
So
Hell yeah, no favoritism.
So you said a couple times the relationships thing. Is that like a no relationship, or just like hooking up and moment's opportunity, that kind of thing?
I think it's kind of like both.
Really?
I think the inmates know, because there's actually books by Robert Greene. I don't know if you guys know the books.
I know the name.
Yeah, like 48 Laws of Power, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and like The Art of Seduction.
Yeah.
Now, They're good reads.
If I bought that book, my wife would cut my
Yeah, they're good books to read. And I mess with my wife because I'm like, yeah, I read the 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, you use that against me? I'm like, maybe. Kind of keep you on the on that gray side. Yeah, so they can't have those books because of the same reason that it's kind of like manipulative, right?
Right.
And so they learn to manipulate officers. They learn to manipulate other people. But yeah, you see sometimes that casual that they got seduced and now they brought in some as little as K2, and now they're hooked, and then it turns into maybe something else, and then it turns into a full on relationship or whatever it is. But yeah.
Yeah, I be listening and it's like, hey, yeah, bring some Skittles. Just so I would tell him I'm listening, I'd bring him a bag of Skittles. Looking at him like, we know we're listening.
I think that's the opposite of what you want.
Yeah. No, I couldn't do that job at all.
Yeah.
So just driving in. So like when you park, you have to go through like 8 gates and then they shake you down and for every day that you come into work, right? You have this process that you have to go through.
Yeah. So we kind of had a lot of liberty as far as at any point in time, I could pick out an inmate and shake him down, like completely like strip search him down. And that would be for whatever reason, maybe we did get a word that this guy was carrying something from the outside from the outside of the prison, because they have to have a certain level of freedom to make it outside of the actual prison walls. Mm-hmm. Some of them, it gets like real convoluted as far as like who can go outside the prison walls, who can go outside the fence, who can do this and that or whatever it is. But we would get word of like, hey, this guy may be carrying this or that, or there's this phone floating around in this block, and so
phone, like cell phone.
Yeah.
I think TikTok's the guys recording from jail.
Yeah, that's
crazy. And I see it all the time now. I'm like, wow, it's too easy. Yeah. Or you would shake down a whole wing so that you wouldn't make it super obvious of who you were after.
True. Right.
So yeah.
Hey, you ever walk down the wing and just smell marijuana? And you're like, where the hell? Who got some weed in here? And it's like,
well, it would be K2. Oh. They would do K2 because I guess whatever test we had, K2 wouldn't pop up because it's like the synthetic marijuana or whatever it was. And so they would be smoking K2 in there. And it's like, you could smell it. It's the same thing. Yeah. Like you'd smell it. It's like this burnt smell. When you get to the wing, you're like, all right, who's smoking K2? Right. So.
And just like out here, everybody looks at you and goes, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know what you talking about.
Wasn't me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm innocent.
Yeah.
Now between your two professions, have you had the opportunity to just thoroughly embarrass yourself yet? Yeah,
I mean, a bunch of times. I think when I got cut loose here on nights A, I was like, go, right? And we got a robbery in progress. And they came out in 21 beat. And it was off of Dalworth, I think. Jefferson, around that area. I can't remember. Anyways, so the victim was following the suspect. He had just got robbed. And he has got his flashers on. And it's raining. So I'm catching up. I get dispatched as primary because I'm like super close.
Right.
And so eventually catch up to the victim. He's got his flashers on. I'm like, yeah, got the dude. Like, and so I cut off the victim and I pull over that first car that's in front of the victim. Yeah. It was the wrong car. Yeah. So luckily my supervisor was behind me. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, high risk stop. I'm like, let's get this guy. He's like, that's the wrong car.
Right.
I'm like, your stomach turns. You're just like, oh.
Because you almost pulled somebody not involved at a gunpoint.
Yeah.
In the rain.
Luckily he stopped me before that whole thing took place. But
that's a lesson a lot of people learn is when you first start, you get the call sheet and you read it, and it's like, suspect, white male, blue car, red shirt. And you read that, you're like, okay.
You think?
And I'm going to go with that. And then it turns out it's like a black dude, blue shirt, red car, because the person was just completely mixed up or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a thing that when I get back on the street, I'll still mix up sometimes. Like I get in my brain, it's like that description is concrete. And is not always.
Yeah.
And because of that, you get the officer going, okay, dispatch, is it red shoes? Or, and he'll ask like 8 times.
And dispatch is like, shut
And I'm
up.
like, just be quiet, bro. Just get the first person you see. But you have to do that now.
Yeah.
That's funny. I understand. Well, okay, so let me ask you this, bro. I know you young, 4 years on, but when somebody tells you, okay, I'm thinking about GPPD, what advice do you give them? Because you're a young officer yourself.
Yeah. So I have a few buddies that are actually from like APD, DPD, a few of them around, and I'm trying to get them to come over, right? At least from that agency to ours. But yeah, I mean, my advice, and even like friends from college and stuff, I advise them, hey, look at the department you're looking at, look at their pursuit policy, look at their use of force policy, and I was like, look at the culture of the department. I think the best way to kind of gauge the morale of a shift is look at the culture. Do the ride-alongs, get to talk with those officers, figure out, kind of like what their feedback is on their view on the department. And then, because the job's hard enough as it is, you don't need the morale to be low. And so if you have that, that backup from your coworkers, from your supervisors, from the admin, it's just going to make it, 1,000 times easier. So that's always my advice to them. Just do your research on the departments you kind of want to look into outside of just the pay.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and ask multiple people, because you ask the old head who's disgruntled for whatever stuff he has going on in his personal life, he might be super unhappy. You ask a newer guy like yourself, he might just be, no, this is the best place ever.
Yeah.
It's a good idea, I think, to kind of get a good run of the mill.
Yeah.
One thing you mentioned, always do the ride-alongs. I know here, and it's pretty much it's standard. Go in, fill out the paperwork, but do the ride-alongs and ride on different days in different cities. So, because like you said, this city over here is going to be totally different than GP, I can assure you. So go out, ride along, ask the questions, figure it out. Because it's not always about the dollar, And I'll tell you now, most in the Metroplex, everybody's getting paid. There's going to be, different levels, however, but do the ride along, figure out what city and what department is good for you, because you're not a great fit for everybody. Super cop. So,
nope. Well, I think we're about done.
Yes.
Well, appreciate you coming on with us, man.
Yeah.
That's probably a little weird, but
yeah.
different. I always say a little different role for us cops. But
Yeah.
It's a good time. Good to get to know you. I feel terrible. I realized I've met you twice before.
Yeah. No? Yeah.
But all right, guys. Well, appreciate y'all listening. Until next time.
Till next time.